Before I begin, I want to state that my remarks reflect my personal experience only and have not been made in any professional capacity, and I testify under subpoena issued to me by this committee. While my professional and academic profile may not fit the image of someone rendered powerless by and treated inhumanely through forced arbitration, none of my achievements has protected me from the years of intense retaliation, dehumanization, and degradation to which my employer, LVMH, has subjected me. In December 2014, I was offered the position of Director Litigation Counsel for the American affiliate of LVMH Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton, the French conglomerate with brands like Dior, Dom Perignon, Fendi, Givenchy, Veuve Clicquot, and Rihanna's Fenty. I was ecstatic. It was my dream job. I attempted to negotiate several aspects of my employment agreement, but LVMH made it clear that no aspect, including the forced arbitration clause, was negotiable. It was a take it or leave it offer. I accepted and achieved glowing, flawless performance reviews. My boss, the US General Counsel, wrote, "Andowah reflects the highest degree of honesty and ethics in all she does and handles all matters with a calm demeanor." I was soon promoted to Vice President Legal Affairs. But I was also being sexually harassed by LVMH's Director of Property and Facility Operations, Lloyd Doran, a white male about 30 years older than me. He supervised a large staff, reported directly to an SVP who reported to the CEO, and was part of the most senior executives' inner circle. I barely knew him when he began leering at me every time he saw me. He would walk by my office very slowly, skimming the doorway. That escalated to him lurking directly outside of my office for such excessive periods of time that a colleague confronted him about it. At work gatherings, he pointedly leered at me, and as soon as I entered the room, would suddenly appear near me. The fact that he monitored all security videos and oversaw security staff especially concerned me. I repeatedly rebuffed his advances, but that had no effect. One day, he entered my office with the excuse of hanging artwork. Suddenly, without warning, he lunged towards me, thrusting his pelvic area into my face as I sat at my desk. He pinned his body horizontally on top of mine. I exclaimed in shock while trying to unpin my body from under his. After I was able to stand up, he pretended that he had done nothing wrong despite my protests. This left me constantly agitated and distressed, preoccupied with avoiding the trauma of encountering him. I listened out for the ding of the elevators, avoided the stairwells, or working very late in the office, and when I had to, barricaded myself inside my office to try to feel safe. When he continued to lurk outside my office, I became anxious and stressed to the point that I had tremendous difficulty concentrating on my work. It was persistent, disruptive, and suffocating. You would think all you need to do to stop things like this would be to report it. I too thought that would end it, but the opposite was true. I was about to receive a horrifying lesson on the power of forced arbitration. In the following days, LVMH ignored my verbal and written reports and failed to do anything to stop it. They instructed me to personally confront him despite the concerns I expressed. My supervisors even reported me for confronting him, and then they investigated me. They disregarded my colleague's testimony who had witnessed some of the behavior and confronted him. Company management even went so far to suggest that I should apologize to him. Ultimately, management blames me for misinterpreting the leering, constant attempts to be near me, and the attempted assault, calling it mere flirtation based on my misunderstanding of French culture, even though Lloyd is American. And I spent many years, as you heard, studying and living in France. They told me this is what executives do in a French company. They seem to justify his misconduct because the general counsel felt, as professional women, there are certain things we have to put up with and sacrifices we have to make. After repeatedly rejecting my request to engage an experienced unbiased investigator, LVMH suddenly reversed course and paid for an outside investigator, but she was unable to keep the facts straight, suggested I should be flattered by the harassment, and asked me if I wanted to keep my job, and warned that I would look like a troublemaker and a son of a bitch, excuse my language. Then, even before completing the investigation, LVMH promoted Lloyd and publicly announced his promotion to all employees at a company event. The investigator initially proposed issuing Lloyd an internal restraining order, but after conferring with LVMH, her final report was modified. Emboldened, Lloyd strutted around the hallway outside my office more than ever. My boss began lowering my annual evaluation ratings and inserting hypocritical and snarky comments. She excluded me from high-profile projects and warned that she would be keeping an eye on me. LVMH left me with no choice but to file a lawsuit. They immediately tried to force my case into arbitration, threatening my attorneys and jeopardizing my case, jeopardizing my career and my livelihood by seeking sanctions against me personally. The CEO then emailed all employees, essentially calling me a liar, misstating LVMH's knowledge, denying any retaliation, and mischaracterizing the investigators' results. He also pretended that a new system created solely for anti-corruption issues suddenly had a secondary function of receiving sexual harassment reports from employees. LVMH repeated similar lies to the press and the court. In 2020, I had to be hospitalized twice due to a serious physical issue, likely triggered by the trauma and stress LVMH incessantly inflicted on me. My case is now in forced arbitration, and I have witnessed firsthand some of the numerous ways it is biased and unjust against survivors. Forced arbitration and the power it provides to employers seems to have emboldened LVMH, who ramped up their retaliation, gaslighting me and inferring that the sexual assault and harassment were figments of my imagination. LVMH has been so relentless in forced arbitration that I had to take unpaid medical leave this year due to their personal attacks. By leveraging forced arbitration, LVMH potentially endangered other employees. Had I not filed a complaint, LVMH would have permitted Lloyd and perhaps others like him to continue working there to this day. Because of forced arbitration and confidential settlements, I may never know the extent to which Lloyd sexually sexually assaulted or harassed others, or if LVMH retaliated against others as they did me. Thank you for unsilencing me today. You each stand in a position of far more privilege and power than most Americans could ever dream of. I hope that you use that position to protect us and your loved ones by ending forced arbitration.